On today's Locked On Jayhawks, Kansas football adds an all-around tight end for the class of 2025.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can give me a follow on Twitter at DJohnsonRadio, and you can find our show with Locked On Jayhawks anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the action. And on today's bonus edition of Locked On Jayhawks, we're talking Joseph Skipworth, who is a three-star tight end who committed to KU earlier this morning. Going to get some info on Skipworth, scouting report, what it means for KU in the class of 2025, and the future at the tight end position, because KU does have a lot of seniors on the roster at the tight end position. Don't forget, you can check out any of our shows. Thank you to the everydayers who already did that. And make sure to check out our Rock Chalk Roundball Classic episode earlier today. That event happening this weekend goes to a great cause. So please check that out and find a way to help any way that you can. All right, let's start here with information on Joseph Skipworth. He is a three-star tight end from Milton, Florida, and out of Pace High School. He's listed at 6'5" by all four major recruiting sites: 24/7, Rivals, ESPN, and On3. The weight varies, though, between 205 pounds and 220 pounds. Definitely was more of a, I guess body-wise, like a big receiver, you could say, at the high school level. So he's definitely going to be in the Matt Gildersleeve add some weight program, but he's got the frame to take it at 6'5" to certainly add on a lot more weight. And he certainly plays up to a big size. He is an 86 graded three-star on 24/7 Sports. He is a 5.6 graded three-star on Rivals, and then he is unrated by On3 and ESPN at the moment. I've always wondered this. Why is Rivals scale on a scale of like, I don't know, like what does 5.6 mean? Is it out of like 7? Is it out of, I don't know. That's a question for another day. Anyway, apparently Skipworth took 2 official visits last week between SMU, and then he visited Kansas. He had 2 more scheduled with Tulane and Boston College. And then he actually just yesterday got an offer from Mississippi State out of the SEC. But I guess the KU visit, that was enough for him to commit. Obviously, it wasn't immediately on the trip. It wasn't, the day right after, but it was close enough right after that makes you think it was obviously a good enough visit to do that. You do wonder if after the Mississippi State offer came, did KU put even more of a hard press on him, or was it just he needed those few days of reflection? Either way, Skipworth ends up committing to KU. One thing that seems to be apparent is recruits really like Jeff Grimes, who's the new offensive coordinator, coming over from Baylor, and before that BYU, and before that he was a longtime assistant and position coach at some SEC schools and stuff, to where you could see that recruiting background coming into play. And he's also the tight ends coach as Grimes for KU. In the article from Jayhawks Slant and John Kirby, he had some really glowing things to say about Jeff Grimes and mentioned that was a big reason why he committed to KU, because of what Grimes brings to the table. And I think it's just an interesting juxtaposition to Andy Kotelnicki, who was the previous offensive coordinator for KU. AK was a great play caller. He was a great play designer, though I do think that Matt Lubick, who's now at Nevada, he had probably just as big of a part in the design part of it. But anyway, Andy Kotelnicki wasn't really known for the recruits he was bringing on. Like when he left, the only guy that he was one of the primary or secondaries on was Carson Bruhn, who was a tight end. He obviously stayed committed. He wasn't as much in the recruiting game. Grimes, it seems like you're going to get more out of the recruiting game. Now, it remains to be seen how much you get out of Grimes compared to Kotelnicki in terms of the offensive play calling and stuff like that. But lots of recruits have been raving about Grimes, and Leyton Cure, who came in, which is obviously an added bonus for KU. So let's talk more about Skipworth, his scouting report, what it means for KU, and the future at the tight end position on this bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks. First, we were brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. They help you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Continuing on, more info on Skipworth and a scouting report, and then we'll talk about what it means for KU, their class 2025 in the future at the tight end position. So according to his Max Preps page, Skipworth last season had 11 catches for 240 yards and 5 touchdowns as a junior. He wound up with 359 all-purpose yards. Obviously, stats are only so helpful at certain positions in high school because it's going to depend on what a team is doing. Like, typically, if you're a good running back, like, you're going to put up numbers no matter what at the high school level. But specifically, like, at tight end, and you see this sometimes with receivers too, you might be at a school who, it's a smaller school, or maybe they're running triple option or speed option, and you don't get as many chances to showcase that. Like Jaden Hamm, for instance, who was a highly recruited kid that was previously committed to Arkansas, ended up coming to Kansas. He's going into another year here at KU as he continues to develop for the Jayhawks program. He was at a Eudora team that was running like a flex bone, or option or something. So you're not going to put up as much of stats. And you almost have to, from the camps and the some of the other stuff and the limited tape you have, kind of project based off that. And I think you see some of that with Skipworth, that you really like a lot of what that tape looks like. He also averaged over 8 points and 8 rebounds per game as a basketball player, which I always think playing basketball is probably super beneficial for tight ends. Like, I feel like there's a lot of skill set there that kind of coincides. And from watching his high school video, the brief, film that I saw, the things that stood out to me were the dude does have some speed. Like, there was one highlight where he is like an up back and kick return. And there were several highlights of him catching the ball in is the up back and kick return and returning it for at least, 10, 15 yards. But there's one where he scores a touchdown and he just like speeds by everyone. You don't see that from 6'5" tight ends very often. The other thing that stood out was it seemed like he had, again, kind of limited tapes. You're not getting, 40 catches in a season, but it seemed like he had a good sense of zones, like meaning that he would get open, he would find an opening in the defense, and then he would kind of slow down before running into a new zone to make it so that he was not running the quarterback into a pick. Like, that is so important for tight ends and receivers who are going to be over the middle of the field. When you get open, you almost just kind of drift and just kind of hang there, and you don't just continue to, I'm open, let's continue to sprint into this next zone, which is not going to be open anymore. And I don't know, maybe it was just the happenstance of the plays that were shown on the film, but it seemed like that was kind of the case, which makes me think he's got a good feel for the game. But honestly, the thing that I might have been most impressed with in watching the film was the blocking. Like, continuously blocked through the whistle. This is a guy who has some, I say this in a positive connotation way, because I think it can be a good thing in football, a nastiness to him when he is blocking. I mentioned only 205 to 220 pounds, depending on what you're good at. I'd imagine if you're Matt Gildersleeve, if you want to get him to 235, 240, maybe even 250, I don't know, whatever the body can kind of take there. He's only going to get better at it. But what you can't teach is the aggressiveness and the mental side of it. Like, you can make him even more physically strong. And that has to be really exciting for when you're projecting this kid out, because he was consistently blocking through the whistle. He had a bunch of pancakes. He showed so much competitiveness in the blocking game. I think he's going to turn into eventually a really good blocker with KU. I think he's going to be a really good all-around tight end down the road. Love this pickup for KU. All right, let's talk more about what it means for Kansas, the class of 2025, and the future at tight end on this episode of the show. First, we're brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's a winner-take-all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. You can bet on the NBA Finals going on. You can get in on the U.S. Open going on this week. I don't know. That second hole looks absolutely incredible. By the way, there's a KU golfer in it. In addition to Gary Woodland, you can parlay both of them to finish in the top 40 at 60-1 odds. So that's something fun you can do, and you can come up with your own bet at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Finishing up this bonus episode of the show. Again, thank you to everydayers checking it out. And if you haven't, make sure to check out the Rock Chalk Roundball Classic episode. We talked with the voice of the Jayhawks, Brian Haney, about the event, how you can support these 7 families who have had to deal with some shortcomings with children in terms of some awful diseases they've had to go through. And you can really help out in what is an awesome week of events to certainly help them out with. So check out that episode anywhere you get your podcast and on our YouTube page. Okay, so what it means for KU in the class of 2025, he becomes the 6th commit in the class. I'd imagine we're going to have a flurry more over the next week, 2 weeks, month or so, because they're going to continually bring on visits. I've talked about how they like to get this stuff wrapped up as much as they can in the summer. He is an 86 graded 3-star, which is actually tied for the lowest recruit KU has gotten to this point. Technically, not that it matters much. I don't know that there's that much of a difference between like an 86 and 87 and 88 and 84, whatever. Like, it's going to mostly matter about development and all that stuff. I don't bring that up to say, and honestly, I'm higher on Skipworth than that grade indicates. The reason I point that out is because I think it's kind of interesting, funny, I don't know, whatever you want to say. I changed the drag down menu to 10 years ago in 2015 out of comparison. An 86 graded 3-star for Kansas would have been tied 3rd best for the KU class 10 years ago, the 2015 class. And that was in a class of 24 commits. It would have been tied 3rd best. Now it's 6 of 6. If I go back 5 years, if I go back to the class of 2020, it would have been tied 5th in a class of 28 kids. One that featured LJ Arnold and Kobe Bryant as 87 and 88 graded guys. And now it's 6 of 6. It's just pretty crazy to me. Like, you knew Lance Leipold and his staff when they came in, they were going to be such an improvement on KU, and they have been in development, in player improvement, in game day experience, all that sort of stuff. I don't know that I expected them to recruit at this high of a level as they continue to do. Now, as far as at the future of the tight end position, Trevor Cardell and Jared Casey graduate after this season. You're also going to graduate Tavita Noah. And then Deshaun Hanukkah could graduate, or he could get a medical red shirt in return for another year. So you're losing either 3 or 4 guys there just to graduation alone. But that means the 2025 group is going to be, I guess, redshirt junior Leyton Cure and Quinton Conley, redshirt sophomore Jaden Hamm, redshirt freshman Carson Bruhn at that point, assuming he redshirts this year, with the option for Hanukkah, which means as a true freshman for Skipworth, like, you're in competition there to possibly be even tight end 3. Realistically, maybe you need a year of development under Matt Gildersleeve to get the body up to par, but I think the target year for really making a big impact, probably 2027. By that point, you're going to be heading into your 3rd year of college. Maybe you've been a rotational player in year 2. Maybe you're redshirted in year 1. Year 3, maybe you become, you get on the 2 deep or even start, because at that point, you're talking about him being a redshirt sophomore. You're talking about Cure, Conley, Hanukkah, and the current guys all gone at that point. Only Jaden Hamm would be a senior, which we'll see where that development goes. But overall, you've layered this position nicely. Wouldn't it be great to add one more and add maybe a 5-star local kid who happens to play tight end as well? That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. Back at it later in the week for a Football Friday episode of the show on LOJ. See you then.